welcome to Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Corumbus. I'm honored to be joined today by U.S. Army veteran Lena King. Ma'am, thank you very much for being with us. She was a World War II veteran with the 6888, the 6888th Central Postal Directory Battalion. Ma'am, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and raised there. Actually, I came there when I was 2. I was really born, my mother tells me, in Washington, Georgia. And at the age of 2, my aunt, that was my father's sister, said, I don't want her raised down here. She brought me to Pennsylvania. I was educated there and stayed there until I joined the service. I went to school in Pennsylvania, graduated from Germantown High, and it was during wartime when I graduated. So I took a job at the Navy Yard and worked as a coppersmith.
A coppersmith? Did they teach you how to do that?
They taught me how to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Let's back up a little bit. What was it like growing up in Pennsylvania at that time?
Well, it was during the Depression. It was in the 1920s, of course. Also Prohibition. I also remember when the stock market, the banks closed, that Great Depression. And I lived through that. I think the Depression was in 1929, and I guess I was around, 7, something like that. But anyway, then they had this prohibition, and of course, all that did was spark a lot of gangsters who made illegal bootleg liquor.
Right.
So I remember gang wars, between different sections, of the country. They had wars. Some territories were managed by the Italians, others Irish, other Jewish. And so I remember a lot about that,
Sure.
Even though I was quite young. Turbulent times. And we survived pretty good. My mother had grown up on a farm, and she could grow anything. And we had a big, what we call a victory garden. And she grew tomatoes that you could just put your teeth in and the juice would fly all over. She was feeding the whole community.
Oh, really?
And I think maybe that has something to do with my longevity. I ate very healthy. We didn't have McDonald's. We didn't have all that fast foods. So I had a very healthy upbringing. We raised our own chickens and had our own eggs. And we had hucksters that would ride around in horse and buggy carriages that, you could buy things that you didn't have. And so it was hard times, but good times. I enjoyed my childhood.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you joined the service. They sent you to the Navy Yard.
I joined the service after a friend of mine. I think one of the big things that encouraged me, there was a Jewish family that ran a store. It was a deli, and it was other things there. And they had a son, Abraham Davis, and he used to have a car, and he used to drive. We were in the same class. I think he he was ahead of me a grade. But he used to drive us to school because some of our schools were quite a ways away. And very few of us had cars in those days, but his family had one and he had a car. And we were very close. We became very close. And when the war broke out, he volunteered for as a fighter because he was Jewish, and because the Germans were raiding the place. They were taking over everything, all the Balkan states, Czechoslovakia, went on through everywhere, Poland. And I think he was moved to do something about it. I know his ancestors or something there. But anyway, he was shot down in his first mission. And of course, that really tore me up because we went to school. We were, grew up together. And I think perhaps, maybe subconsciously, that may have made me really want to do something and sort of, encourage me about serving. Yeah.
So you said you were a coppersmith that they trained you to do. What did they have you making?
Well, we made wiring for, to put into, things that needed copper. So we had templates that we would follow, and we'd follow the guides or the templates wherever that fitting was supposed to go, wherever a copper fitting, yeah.
So at what point did you move away from that to the...
I did that until I just decided that I wanted to do something in the war effort. And I thought about it. And I also saw friends of mine going away, being drafted and so on and so forth. And everything was changed, everything was changing. And of course, we had Pearl Harbor. And, I just decided that it would be a good chance for me, an opportunity to do something. So
how did the opportunity to join the 6888 come about?
Well, what happened was we heard that they were signing people up to go to Europe. That Charity Adams, Colonel, was saying that she had been given an assignment or decided to, on her own, to make a group of women, a battalion of women, to go over and do something about the mail. There were supposed to have been 2 to 3 years of mail backed up as servicemen were not getting. And so, of course, she created the slogan, "No mail, low morale," because, they had no way of keeping in touch with their families, didn't know what was happening. They didn't know what was happening from home. And they thought that this would be something to tackle. And so what she did was go around to various different stations where the women were. At that time, I was a member of the Army Air Corps, and they were together at that time. They hadn't been separated yet. Mm-hmm. And she went from various different places to recruit women. and to bring them all to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, where we were trained for overseas duty. And they wanted, the women who were, had been really good disciplined service people to be chosen. And I was chosen as one to go, and I went to Fort Oglethorpe, where we had some overseas training. We had to go through a long, what we would call like it, sort of a imitation battlefield, and we'd have to learn how to put gas masks. They would blow, put the bombs out, and had training to so many seconds to get your gas masks on and things of that type. We had bivouac training, that's what you'd call, and how to pack, things. And after that amount of training, we were selected, and our mission was to build a post office. So I think our battalion consisted of about 880 some women from various different sections were selected to be, and we all met in New York Harbor, and we took the Ile-de-France. I believe it was Ile-de-France because it was supposed to be a maneuverable ship, and I didn't need escorts or something. I don't know, but anyway, it was your U-bombs came straight, and they were able to detect and move. So that's what we went over on. And we landed in Scotland, I remember. And we took trains to Birmingham, England. But I think that's where the ship landed, was in Scotland.
Scotland.
Well, first of all, our facilities that we were supposed to be housed in had been bombed. So we had to use an old schoolhouse, clean it up, and make it, do for us, for them to bring our, to put everything into. We found bags of mail. A lot of them were rat infested, where, people send food to their pies and cakes. They were all vermin infected. It was a mess. It was awful. I mean, you looked around and you said, oh my God, what is this? But then you knew you had to get to work and start doing something. So what we did, we used an old airplane hangar, and we built a post office out of it. We had the seatings, and we had blackouts, so on and so forth, because they were still bombing.
So you're saying they black out the windows,
yeah.
So when you were working around the clock, the Germans bombing England couldn't see you as a potential target.
Couldn't see us, right.
So you have...
And we had 3 shifts, 7 days a week. We just changed and so on and so forth. And we, at that particular time, we mostly existed on sea rations and things like that. And it was difficult, but we, it wasn't an easy thing. And it was cold, nothing heated, But we were young, we were strong, and we survived it.
And you were committed to the job.
And we were committed. They asked us if we could how soon did we think we could get it rolling in 6 months or something. We were able to get it rolling in 3 months.
You were caught up in 3
We
months.
were caught up in 3 months.
How did you organize that?
Well, we had a system, and of course, I guess we worked with intelligence to keep knowing where the soldiers were going, because they were moving around. And we had our own system it was very, very organized. And of course, oftentimes people would just send mail to Johnny or somebody who, there's Johnny, but where's the So we'd have to have a group set aside that would go through the mail and find out what the family name was, so they would know it was Johnny Smith or whatever, and put it together. We had a lot of used a lot of ingenuity and so on and so forth to get it working, get it done. So
you mentioned the motto of no mail, low
low
morale.
morale.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting any, a soldier's, the greater part of his day is mail call.
Sure.
Because they want to see what's going on at home with the family.
How was your morale as you did all this work?
We didn't think about. We were too busy. When you're busy, busy minds don't have time to think about it. Of course, it was good hearing from getting our mail from our families too. We looked forward to it. We were human. We still,
Sure.
We wanted to get stuff too. It was nice getting our packages. So made it really good. And we got things cleared up there. We moved on to Rouen, France. Mm-hmm. Had the same setup there.
And the same kind of backlog too,
yeah,
right?
The same kind of backlog.
And the same system, and this another 2 to 3 months to take care of that, right?
Yes, right. And then, of course, while we were there, we had Victory in Europe Day, VE Day. And things start slowing down. They started sending the troops. Then a lot of the troops were going to Japan, so they were moving on out, and so that was slowing a lot of the mail down. But it was. Let's see, we got there in January 45. It was over a year. I can't remember the building that we used there, but it was an old building. And of course, Rouen is a very religious, historical city of the cathedrals and so on. But that was where Joan of Arc was buried, the stake. Mm-hmm. That was just in rubble.
Really?
It was all those monuments, beautiful cathedrals, were just flattened out. And of course, the Germans were very, very powerful. In fact, I think the French sort of, a lot of them went along with the Germans because of, Paris was declared an open city, and they just gave that over to the Germans.
Right.
But it was It was pretty much the same. But after the war was over and things sort of after Victory in Europe Day, and as I said, they were going to Japan.
Right.
And so the mail sort of was thinning out. And
now I heard in France you had a little bit of an issue that you didn't have in England, and that's that people were stealing packages.
Right. There was a lot of theft there. It was in Birmingham, England, the people were just incredible. They were just so we made lots of friends and friendships. That's where I got my first fish and chips on paper. And kidney pies and Pilsner fish and mushroom breakfast and so on and so forth. But in France, we really had to watch closely because it was, I think the French, a lot of them, I don't know whether they were starving, more hungry, or what it was, but I know we did have a lot of French people that hung around the post. And of course, we didn't have a facility. What we lived in was an old, what the priests live in, a big...
Rectory?
No, it's, what they call, but it was a big cold stone building. And of course, with our ingenuity, we always try to make everything comfortable. But in spite of all of that, we did have a lot of, because we had French people who were hungry, and we had a lot of them coming there for food and for various different things, young children, people who were starving. And so it was a lot, the atmosphere was a lot different there.
So you mentioned that the mail was tapering down. How long did you stay there after the end of the war in Europe?
Well, we couldn't come back right away because the ships were all being used to move the troops. And then the troops that were going to go home, of course, they had first priority. So they did have a program that I was lucky enough that they were sending those who were able to qualify or to school. So I was able to go to school while I was there until, when the postal facilities were just about closed down.
What did you study?
I went to Leicester School of Art and Technology. I studied dress design and so on and so forth, because they had different categories but I lived with an English family. I lived on the New Walk, number 40 on the New Walk. And I was there for about, I think it was around 10 months, something like that. But I think the courses were like 6 months each. And we had, wherever the service people were studying or in school, they had it set up with a PX and so on and so forth. And we were able to get supplies like soaps and all the really needed things there. And sometimes we could even get food packages. And the English woman that I stayed with was just she went insane when we would get something and we'd just give it to her. It was another student with me. And we would give her the packages. We'd have soap, Lux, and Ivory, and all kinds of nice toothpaste, and so on and so forth. That made it easier for us. But
so when you came home, what was it like? Because I know that your efforts were appreciated in getting the mail caught up, but what was it like to then return home to a country where you were not seen as equal?
Well, when we came home, there were no parades, there was nothing. We just came home, I was in Pennsylvania. We were sent to wherever we enlisted from, and that was Fort Dix, New Jersey. Our family came and picked us up. That was the end of it. We heard nothing more about, thank you for whatever. No parades, no nothing. We just went home, went back to work. And when was it? It was last year. A man named Carlton Philpott decided it was time to honor us. And he is from Kansas, and he had a memorial set up in granite with all of our names on it. And he gave us a parade with it's where the Buffalo Soldiers have a monument there at this in Leavenworth, Kansas. And the schools were closed for the parade, everything. It was just wonderful. They have a fort there. They have a lot of trainees. We were met at the airport by reporters. It was unbelievable, because after all those years, 75 years here, it was about 6 or 7 of us that he could find. And we were greeted and we were honored and we were given that parade. It was mind-boggling because, we had just come home and went back onto our lives. And I had married a soldier. We got back together and we started, and he lived in California. I lived in Philadelphia. I met him in California. We started our life there. And here, after my kids, everything has changed, and 75 years later, this Mr. Philpott calls us and wants to honor us. It was just, I couldn't believe it. And we went there and it was celebrated, and we were made to feel like we had done something worthwhile,
I can see in your eyes how much that meant to you.
It meant a lot. It meant something. So I need a Kleenex, but it did. Because I never felt that we had done anything, because we were never made to feel that what we had done was important. Thank you. It really made us feel like you people, you were heroes. You did something wonderful. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I don't usually get this emotional, but when I think about it, when I think about it, this man, Mr. Philpott, who thought we were pretty wonderful. And here today, it's pretty touching.
Yes, you're being honored this week in Washington.
Pretty touching.
As well. You mentioned there were about 7 of you that made it to this dedication. Did you know any of those other ladies from your time overseas?
I never knew any of them. They were all strangers to me. The ones that I was with, the little group that I was with, I think they're all gone. I lost touch with them, through the years. And so, a lot of people don't get to live to be 90. So, I'm one of the ones that's been blessed with, I'm 96 years of age. And thank God I still have my faculties. I'm in pretty good health. So I figure I must be here for a reason.
Well, we're glad you're here this week.
Well, thank you.
What did you do? You mentioned you moved out to California, started a family.
Yeah, I became a nurse. I went to school for nursing. And I worked. And I worked at the Veterans. I remember this hospital, the old Veterans Hospital. I worked in cardiology, and they had leaks in the roof. We had to put buckets down but then by the time I left, they had built a new VA. I worked at UCLA, and also I retired from Kaiser after 20-some years of working at Kaiser as a nurse there. And I worked in various different departments there, but yeah, I became a nurse, and I married the man that I met in the service. And I can't say the marriage didn't work because we were married 25 years. And I decided we want different things. People say, well, you've been 25 years, why don't you just... I said, no, I think I can fulfill my dreams differently. But it was a good marriage, produced 2 children, and my next marriage was to a confirmed bachelor who was this lady's uncle. He made me decide he didn't want to be a bachelor anymore. And they said, it's not going to last. It lasted until he died, 25 years later. So,
Lena?
I had a pretty good life.
And you're still going
I'm
strong.
Still going.
You're still going strong. Lena, we thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story with us today, and we thank you so much for your amazing service to our country, you and all the ladies of the 6888.
Well, we did what we felt was the right thing to do, so that in itself is enough thanks for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. U.S. Army veteran Lena King, a veteran of the 6888th Central Postal Directory Battalion, a World War II veteran. I'm Greg Corumbus. This is Veterans Chronicles.